In today's news, curfew conditions further relaxed to 2 a.m.
And today, the government's annual legislative agenda was rolled out during the speech from the throne, as well as Virgin Gorda is pulling out all the stops to make sure that they save tourism amidst COVID-19. All that and so much more when 284 News returns.
How does financial services benefit the BVI? It's been around for more than 3 decades before the World Wide Web and is now part of the everyday life of our islands. More than 2,200 people are directly employed in financial services, and another 3,000 jobs are supported indirectly. Jobs are corporate service providers, lawyers, insolvency, accounting, banking, insurance, regulators. That's almost 27% of the national workforce. Of those, more than 65% are BVI landers and belongers. What about restaurants, supermarkets, or shops? Well, 100% of people eat. So, they buy food. They buy swimsuits and shampoo and cars and power tools and plantains and fish and roti and pates. Financial services employees buy painkillers and lots of beer. Then there's electricity and dental floss and toilet paper and pretty much everything else. And everyone needs a roof over their heads and a place to do business, so we all rent or buy from a local landlord. Housing and office space alone means millions of dollars into the pockets of BVI families. At the end of the day, everyone benefits, including charities who receive thousands of dollars every year. And more than 60% of all government revenues come from fees paid by financial services. This money is spent on schools, roads, ports, scholarships, the environment, health, sports, children, youths, and the elderly. Financial services contributes more than $290 million to the BVI economy. That's more than 30% of all economic activity is driven by financial services. This creates thousands of jobs all across the islands, meaning more people have a way to earn a living. What does financial services do for the BVI? Let's just say it keeps our lights on. Financial services is everybody's business. So, come on, mind your business and let's not keep this to ourselves.
Welcome there, everybody. Today is Thursday, November 5th, 2020, and we are coming to you live out of the beautiful British Virgin Islands. I am Kyla Kenesha Forbes.
And my name is Javon Wilson, once again welcoming you to another edition of 284 News. Now, what a mouthful to go over today, Kyla. First of all, we have a new curfew.
We do. Early this morning, getting that news that curfew conditions have been further relaxed, so now persons are able to be out until 2 a.m. So essentially that is only 3 hours inside, but of course viewers will get into all of those details for you. But as we look across the region and also in the United States, it is election season. We're still waiting for the U.S. elections to call who will be their next president. And of course, although it's not necessarily Caribbean election or election right here in the BVI, everyone across the world is just waiting to see what will be next for the United States.
And Kyla, we're waiting because we're also interconnected, especially us in the region with the United States of America.
So much.
If the Biden camp wins, that would look much different from when Trump was in power. So
Definitely.
Persons are really anticipating how this is going to turn out, but also in St. Vincent and the Grenadines elections as well. So we see the countries keeping the ball rolling.
Yeah.
But right here in the BVI, the government of the Virgin Islands has today rolled out the legislative agenda. Lots of legislations coming for the next year. We do see some rolling over from the last legislative agenda, but nevertheless, lots of legislations that show innovation, lots that push entrepreneurial activity within the BVI. And interestingly, legislation coming that is supposed to work against corruption in the government. And we know of many scandals as it relates to current and predecessor government.
Yes.
So I think that is a pretty interesting piece of legislation.
Most definitely. But viewers, of course, we will not let you wait any longer, but let's just jump right into it now. As I said before, as of today, November 5th, 2020, the Cabinet of the Virgin Islands has issued a new curfew order, curfew number 37. 7. Now, Javon, that is quite a bit because we have been under curfew orders for at least nearly the whole year. Now, and this curfew order will further relax the previous curfew conditions. Now, this curfew order imposes the following curfew on the territory between the hours of 2:01 a.m. to 4:59 a.m. daily. Now, business owners, of course, are permitted to open and operate between the hours of 5 a.m. to 2 a.m. daily. Businesses are reminded that you have to practice all social distancing protocols, and sanitization measures should always be followed. Now, for the boating community, private vessels are permitted to operate within territorial waters between the hours of 5:01 a.m. and 6 p.m. daily. Now, ferries are permitted to operate between 5:01 a.m. and 1:59 a.m. daily. Now, this curfew will be enforced until Thursday, the 19th of November, 2020. Now, Javon, I think a lot of persons are very happy to see even more so the curfew being relaxed further, but many persons within our territory are asking the question, why? If we're just going to keep cutting down the hours at this point, if we're only inside for 3 hours, what is the reason? Why?
I know, and it's funny because I came across a joke today that says, maybe COVID-19 is out between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. We don't even know.
We never know.
Maybe that is guiding the government's decision. But the Minister of Health, Honorable Curfew, in his exclusive interview with us recently, has said this is the government's effort to be careful, and that's why we see a gradual release of the curfew. But like you said, Kyla, some have equated that with control as opposed to being careful. So lots of questions, lots of concerns, especially from the business community, who depend on, operations between these hours in the night. So we're trusting again that there is great reasoning behind these decisions, because I don't think the public is necessarily upset that we are under a curfew, but they want to know why. What is the reasoning behind it? What are some of the key performance indicators we should be looking for? What are some of the conditions that we are working with? And in the absence of that communication, lots of questions and answers.
Most definitely. And Javon, for some persons like myself, that this curfew might not affect myself who may be inside, and we cannot cut out, like you said, that business community or persons who have things to do within those hours. But of course, we will be watching that closely as our curfew conditions continue to change over the coming weeks.
And trust, like the Premier said initially too, that it will be fully lifted before that December 1st grand reopening.
We'll have to see.
Viewers, today the speech from the throne outlining the government's legislative agenda was delivered by His Excellency the Governor, Mr. Augustus J.U. Jasbert, under the first sitting of the third session of the Fourth House of Assembly. It was under the theme, Driving BVI Innovation Through Legislation. Now, the annual agenda, which is prepared within the Premier's office in consultation with ministries, underlined the government's vision to transform the Virgin Islands into a leading regional economy through innovation, entrepreneurship, and local and foreign investment by 2025. Now, we caught up with the Honorable Premier of the Territory, Honorable Andrew A. Foy, who really spoke to what happened today. So listen in.
Speech that's prepared by the Premier's office, and you get information from all the ministries and departments, but it's also mutually aligned to the manifesto of the government of the Virgin Islands, which is the Virgin Islands Party's manifesto. And when you're finished gathering all the information, then you put it together, and then by a matter of tradition and also legislative law, it's only delivered by the governor, but it is the sitting government's legislative agenda. With that now, it is, of course, as I said, delivered by the governor. We were able to bring forward a lot of legislation that will help the people of the Virgin Islands and help the economy. But it's important to note that legislation is the overarching entity, but there are also policies that will come out of each legislation that will be numerous and vast that will help the people of the Virgin Islands further and investors, the economy and safety. We were able especially in June and within the last year, to pass many legislations to help the people of the Virgin Islands. But COVID-19 caused us to look at some of the legislations that we're bringing, again, that were not able to be passed in the House or brought to the House as yet, to look through a different lens, a more progressive lens, one that takes in consideration technology, takes in consideration health and safety of persons, and also future possible pandemics, and how persons will work at home or school, and how do we keep the economy going even in the midst of crisis. So the delay turned out not to be a denial, as we say with God's word. So it helped us to see things through a new lens. But the legislations that we passed, though, we were to keep the people of the Virgin Islands safe. So the delay was not one in which you were not working, but you had to quickly work on other areas to keep the people safe in the health field, in some of the legal aspect in terms of to stop, to deter persons from wanting to get involved in the smuggling of persons, to deter persons from wearing their mask in all the social areas, and to make sure that we could quarantine persons that would need quarantine. And that's the reason that we have been able to keep the confirmed positive cases down and right now to zero. Thank God for that with the health team. But it has been through a lot of legislative amendments and new legislation. Now we're bringing forward some of the legislations that we mentioned before in the last speech for the throne. And the reason being, as I stated, is that the COVID-19 created some delays. But I'm glad too that the delay came, because now through the e-government legislation, some of them have been around for a while and they never moved forward to help the people. And we did have to introduce some new areas to them and also improve them in light of what we learned through COVID-19 to help government business to continue to move from strength to strength, and also to be able to bring in more revenue for the government even in the middle of a disaster. We've been able to bring and make amendments to the BVI investment bill that will help our people through different areas where we have seen COVID-19 has brought out the need for us to enhance in innovation, in entrepreneurship, and also the significance of food security. And although we're not in government 2 years yet, it seems like we have been there for 20 years with all the challenges that we continue to be faced with. But with God's help, we continue to get them done. And working on these legislations that you heard today is going to be able to put the BVI into a new paradigm and advance our people.
That was the Honorable Premier Foy speaking to the agenda. Now, Kyla, innovation seems to be the driving force behind this year's agenda. I know the last agenda, green economy, stood out, but nevertheless, we see innovation taking the lead. And I think it's because we are in an age where a lot has transitioned to, we're utilizing technology, and a lot has transitioned to the e-world. So the government is making sure that nothing is left behind as it relates to the public services. One of the legislations coming forward that I'm really pleased, and I'm sure the public is pleased about, is electronic legislation that will essentially make our government an e-government. A lot of those transactions, a lot of those payments will now be able to be done online and in shorter processes, of course. So definitely something that we've been pushing for in the public service, and I know it's definitely going to help a lot of us, Kyla.
Most definitely. We're definitely looking forward to this legislative sitting. A lot of legislation coming out of that's due to be read in this sitting, so definitely exciting stuff.
And another one, agriculture. We've been speaking about the statutory board, the statutory body rather, that will be formed to govern food security. That's another area of concern coming out of COVID-19. The BVI definitely needs to secure food. And we realize this because there are so many constraints coming from the fact that we import so much from the United States, and they too are in a dire position. And interestingly, anti-corruption bill, and Kyla, we've been having this conversation for I think quite a number of years across successive governments. We recall the Pier Park project, we recall the Perimeter Wall, the BVI Airways, then there was the Neighborhood Partnership Project. All of those were major scandals across government. So essentially what this legislation aims to do is stamp out a lot of those scandals. And then immigration, the Immigration and Passport Act will be amended to now give customs and immigration officers the authority to fine persons who they find illegal in the territory. And I'm really happy to hear that specifically because, Kyla, we do know that our court system is currently overwhelmed with a lot of cases. So essentially, we will be taking away a lot of those smaller cases and being able to handle it on our own. But lots coming out from the legislative agenda. I think very exciting. Very ambitious, but I think that is synonymous with the Virgin Islands Party government.
Most definitely. Now, viewers, still ahead, Virgin Gorda is letting nothing stop, COVID-19 killing their tourism agenda. We have so much for you. Also, very own Sharon Flax Brutus has been appointed as Caribbean Tourism Organization. So we have so much of this coming up. This is 284 News, and we'll be right back.
The win! Oh!
What are the hell?
I'm freaking out!
Is time.
284 News.
Coming to you live and direct from the beautiful British Virgin Islands.
What's poppin', what's really good, what's happening, what's up?
Davis has won it for the Lakers!
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now, Virgin Gorda, the mecca of tourism in the BVI, is leaving no stone unturned in an effort to revive the tourism product while at the same time preserving lives and livelihood amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, if you're yet to see the efforts as well as the enthusiasm of the Virgin Gorda community, let's watch.
I have welcomed guests to Little Dix Bay in the British Virgin Islands and the Virgin Gorda for over 50 years, and it gets even more special over time.
It's a beautiful day in paradise. Hospitality is an art, and as time progresses, art advances.
We know the BVI is still in recovery mode, but now we also have to be in COVID-19 mode.
We have all missed you. We're paying special attention to sanitizing and cleaning your accommodations. We want you to stay safe and sound on your visit. We are sparing no effort or expense. Our signature touches have been improved: beauty, safety, and your well-being. We want you to mask up and wind down and have a beautiful experience here in Virgin Gorda.
We make sure that the safety framework is set for you to visit us without a shadow of a doubt. Our healthcare guidelines must be followed.
We believe that this is our prerogative to do what we can in our area of the community to keep our island safe from COVID-19.
After months of virtual classrooms, we have learned so much, but we cannot wait to get back into our physical classrooms. But we have been paying attention and we know just how important masks are. We will keep physical distancing to 6 feet and wash our hands and sanitize often.
Safety has always been our main focus on the seas, and now it's even more important for us to adhere to new guidelines. Sanitization of the vessel before, during, and after each run is a must. Social distancing between the seated rows and correct use of the mask by each passenger aboard the vessel is a must. Your visit with us is special, and we want to keep it that way.
We follow strict guidelines back and front of the house to ensure proper safe dining experience.
We wear gloves and masks, and we maintain 6 feet physical distance during food preparation.
We're excited to welcome you back to our restaurant.
I've been driving a taxi for 55 years. Remember, wash your hands, sanitize, keep your distances, wear your mask. I welcome you back to Virgin Gorda.
COVID-19 is just a bump in the road.
A safe community is a happy community.
Virgin Gorda, your new ordinary, still extraordinary.
I definitely think at this point, Virgin Gorda needs to adopt me. It's way too beautiful. I mean, you look at that video and you get all sorts of feels. I mean, for years, I think from the beginning of the BVI, it has been known as one of the most beautiful parts of the British Virgin Islands. So I'm really glad to see such great representation and hope amidst COVID-19. And really their commitment to not only adapting to these new tides, but ensuring that this pandemic does not continue to cripple what the island continues to depend on, their bread and butter, and that is tourism. But even more great news coming out of Virgin Gorda, viewers. Former Director of Tourism, Ms. Sharon Flax Brutus, has been elected to serve on the Caribbean Tourism Organization's Allied Board for the period 2020 to 2022. Now, the Allied Board members' responsibilities now include lending expertise to the development of regional programs, assisting in planning the annual Caribbean Marketing Conference, assist in recruiting non-government members, representing the Allied members' interests at the Board of Directors level. Now, the Caribbean Tourism Organization, for those who may not know, is a leading sustainable, they're leading sustainable tourism, as a matter of fact, with over 30 member countries, and really serves as the primary source of Caribbean tourism statistics in the world. It is also the largest tourism scholarship and grant resource in the Caribbean, with over 89 major scholarships and 124 study grants presented to deserving Caribbean students, amounting to just over $813,000 US. That is ever since 1998. Now, Mrs. Flax Brutus, as we all know, was appointed alongside 4 other dynamic tourism professionals from throughout the Caribbean region. And she was selected based on her insurmountable love and commitment to the development of tourism in the BVI and beyond. Serving as the former Director of Tourism for 7 years, that's right here in the BVI, Mrs. Flax Brutus was responsible for the policy making as well as the strategy formulation for the BVI tourism industry, and very influential in reestablishing the BVI brand as a discerning travel destination. She now serves as the Director of Operations for the Virgin Gorda Villa. Now, talk about stalwart representation, Kyla, a BVI, representing the BVI as a viable destination within the region. I know we all sell sun, sand, and sea within the region, but nevertheless, the BVI has managed to really distinguish itself as a product, and I think it really speaks for itself. But I'm really happy to see that not only us in the BVI can recognize great talent and representation when we see it, but here we see the Caribbean Tourism Organization as well, highlighting that this will be a really great member of our team. And I'm just really happy to see that the BVI will be represented well.
We see where Mrs. Brutus continues to work on behalf of the BVI, and we definitely want to thank her for that. But just going a little bit back to that video, sometimes I watch videos and pictures of the BVI as a whole, and just, I don't believe I live here. Right. It's just absolutely beautiful, and I think that's the messaging that we should push as we just extend our hand back out to the visitors on December 1st. So we're definitely just encouraging them to come on through and just reminding them how beautiful we are right here in the British Virgin Islands.
Absolutely, and I'm really proud of Virgin Gorda for really coming together as a collective to say, listen, we are not going to let COVID stop us.
Not at all.
I'm really happy to see this type of content coming out of Virgin Gorda.
Most definitely. And Javon, before we close out, we've been speaking about elections. And just today, St. Vincent and the Grenadines have headed to the polls. Now, 15 seats are up for grabs as Vincentians go to the poll today. Now, voting starting from 7 a.m. And according to the electoral office on St. Vincent and the Grenadines, there are 98,000 plus registered eligible voters. Now, the United Labour Party, which has been in office since 2001, is looking for another 5 years in a row under the leadership of its political leader, Ralph Gonsalves. Now, the new Democratic Party, led by Dr. Goodwin Friday, has also put forward a full slate to contest all 15 seats. Now, in 2015, the elections were close, with the ULP taking 8 seats and the NDP taking 7. Very close. Now, this year, due to the coronavirus pandemic, of course, things have to change, and 242 travelers who arrived in St. Vincent and the Grenadines between October 22nd and October 31st and were in day 6 of 14 of their quarantine are eligible to vote on that on today. But Javon, I think what this really shows is that although we are going through a pandemic, we see with the nationals of St. Vincent and the Grenadines are still flying home to vote for their representatives, just meaning that they will be a part of this process. We know that this is something, especially in the Caribbean, that we do, and we were wondering if COVID would kind of stop that. But we see in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that's a definite no. Now, these persons will be allowed to leave quarantine at 4:30 p.m. with an exemption to reach their allocated polling stations by 5 p.m. All voters with these exemptions must wear a face mask for the entire period out of quarantine, except for its removal when requested for the purpose of identification. Meanwhile, all voters and electorals have been encouraged to wear masks or face coverings while at polling stations. Of course, hand sanitization will be implemented before and during the voting process, and all the things that we have been hearing about and to do during this COVID-19 era. But definitely exciting things over in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and just how we are waiting for and awaiting the U.S. results, we will be waiting for the St. Vincent and the Grenadines results as well. Since 2001, Javon, that is a very long time that the UDP has been in, but we'll have to see how this year's go.
You just never know. I think one of the determining factors this time around in the midst of COVID-19 is how governments are leading the charge, and I think it's a big determining factor for voters. The great thing about the persons coming back in is, guess what? They don't have to, be in long lines. They're exempted, so they get to get in there at 4:30, get out at 5, which is excellent. But nevertheless, kind of very important that they're coming back home, because when you think about politics and the governments you elect to vote, they really determine the landscape going forward. So I'm sure persons would want to be a part of that process.
Before we go, I would say, yes, it is depending on how that leader have dealt with the pandemic specifically, but we see over in the U.S. where we just thought that the race would not be that close, but surprising always when it comes to the United States of America.
You just never know. Viewers, we are out of time for today, but you can follow us on 284media.com for lots more stories, of course. But thank you so much for joining us. My name is Javon Wilson.
And of course, it's always my pleasure. I am Kyla Kenesha Forbes. We'll see you again tomorrow as we deliver your daily dose of local, regional, and international content right here on 284 Media. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye.